I'm here with Maxx Kaufman,
right?
Of Hunted the Demon's Forge games director.
Yep.
And he's here to tell us a little bit about the game. Now, it's would you say it's fair to say it's a fantasy co-op adventure action game? Would that be a fair description?
Yeah, I mean, Hunted is one of the first fantasy games that uses cover-based combat. That's really a big thing about the game. It's almost, although we have a large melee component, it has a lot of shooter-esque, parts to it. It's not necessarily a shooter, but when you look, there's a lot of action games out there, and Hunted has very different gameplay. It's fast. It's a lot of combat. There's action. There's cover.
Yeah, well, see, I noticed when I was playing through it, I didn't actually know about the cover. I saw the cover there, but I didn't even instinctively go towards it because it's not the type of thing you usually see in a fantasy.
Right, sure.
But then you've got the obviously the sword and shield type fighting mechanics, but then you've also got the bow and arrow, so I imagine that's where the cover comes in a bit more.
Right. It's two characters based around two characters, and they have three combat stances, which are melee, ranged, and magic. She's better at ranged, he's better at melee, but they can both, do all of those things. And taking cover is definitely a big part of the game,
Okay. And it's online cooperative co-op as well, I believe, yeah?
Yes, online co-op. And another cool thing is that if you're playing with your buddy, because the characters are so unique, you can swap at many points during the game.
We came to a bit in a level where there was a switch, and it allowed us to switch over characters, which is good. It helps mix things up.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, you might say, hey, I like playing the girl. The other person says, hey, let's switch. And you get this totally different experience, which is really cool. And, again, looking back at shooter-type games, very unique to a shooter-type game.
Well, I noticed with the bow and arrow mechanics that you've got the kind of left trigger to look down the sights and right trigger to fire, as obviously you see in a lot of shooting mechanics.
Right, absolutely. And along the way you can get different bows. One of our bows is a fast shooting bow.
Okay.
And another bow is a long bow that closest thing to approximate would be a sniper.
So it takes a bit longer, but it does a bit more damage.
Right, and you can zoom in further. So.
Okay. And then I imagine there's some sort of upgrade system as well, as it's kind of RPG style game?
Yeah, there's upgrades in the weapons that you find throughout the world, and then there's also upgrades in that you find these shards. And these shards, there's a spirit named Seraphim, basically, and she will, for you gathering these shards, she will grant you different spells and abilities. And then there's a whole tree that you can use.
Can you describe a bit of the story of the game as well?
Sure. That's another unique part to Hunted, is that the story is very twisted and dark, and it deals with some kind of big issues. There's this addiction throughout the land, and these creatures are addicted to this liquid called slag. And so the characters find out early on that, hey, this stuff can make you powerful, but it also has some negative properties associated with it. And for some reason, these creatures are going crazy for it. On top of that, they find very early on, they come to this town, all the people are taken. All they hear about early on when they get into the dungeon is that the people are being sacrificed to this Queen of Darkness, that there's human sacrifice involved as well. So we touch on those two topics, which are really strong elements to put in a fantasy game. And that really gives you kind of a good overview of the story. It is a mystery. And they are two characters that go through it in a linear fashion. Co-op's a huge part of the game. And again, the characters having unique abilities, we had to look at co-op and say, okay, we've got two characters that want to play apart from each other. One wants to rush forward, one wants to stay back. The characters are built around co-op, right, like we discussed. But you can also play in single player, and you have an AI buddy. The characters, they have magic. All the magic is co-opable with your partner. So you can buff your partner at a distance, obviously, with magic, and your partner gets in trouble, you buff them, you can use Fire Swarm, and that'll basically give him a fire buff. We call that Battle Charge. Another way to do it is using spells. Spell to spell buffing will create a battle link, and that battle link creates a magical tether that will cause damage to enemies as well.
And also I noticed obviously there's if your partner gets down, you can revive them and stuff like that as well.
Right. So if your partner goes down, you can revive them, but you revive them, you just throw the vial across the level, and that'll bring them up.
Okay. And for other gamers that haven't had a chance to get their hands on the game yet, what would you say would be the major influences that have influenced the game and the style of gameplay that you've got basically?
Right. There's a lot of influences. It goes back as far as like wizardry and Hexen and Heretic, if you remember those. See, I'm kind of old now. I mean, people you say Hexen and Heretic and they're like, what is that? I've never heard of that. There's more modern influences, a lot of the games that come out now, and I think it's really the genre. It's really pulling a lot of these modern influences into a fantasy genre. So that was our driving force on creating the game.
When can people definitely get their hands on the game in the shops, you mean?
It is coming out in early 2011.
Early 2011.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time today,
Thank you.
Much appreciated.